Hello, all my Rumble fans and also you people on the Google product. Good to see you all and welcome again. I have a very special guest that I'm very excited about. And, I will just tell you, see, most law streamers out there, they just sit there and they spout off, which I'm known to do occasionally, right? But the thing is see that what you get with Gosney is you get real experts. You don't just get people like, who's body reading, body language readers or horoscope, mind readers. No. No, with Gosney, you get the real deal. This is like you get the real nitty gritty, real experts. And we're going to talk to a real expert about not only just about the Murdaugh trial, but about juries generally. Now, some of you, if the super fans out there, and I see some few of them, super fans like Upon the Horizon, Mystery Sniper, Bella the Bayou, and over here in other land, Christine, Trish, Gigi, Sadie, Ginger, Porcelain, and Shane, Coke. You all might be familiar with this guest because she's been on once before. So, but I'm going to make a habit of trying to introduce people a little more because we just kind of blast on like you're expected to know us. All right. So the first person, this person I want to introduce you to is a real jury expert. And I will explain why in a second. And her name is Mary Rose Peterson.
Hi.
How are you?
Hi, everyone.
How's my favorite ex-client's wife?
I'm great. And your ex-client is sitting over here and refusing to come on camera because he didn't get to shave. So
I understand. Well, give my best to your wonderful Marty. And I will say that, so let's give people a little background. No, it's okay. This is
here he is. Ta-da! Live and in person.
There he is. There he is. That's my client right there. Hey, wait, Marty, come back for a second. I know you've done it before, but just so people are clear, you have given me permission to talk about your case. You have waived attorney-client privilege in the past and in the present. Is this correct?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a look to Barry. He's a smart guy.
Well, we're 2.5 years post-stroke, so he looks to me for everything.
Right.
Just to make sure I'm answering that right.
Now, Marty here is somebody who got, and this is amazing. Let's just give it. I met Mary Rose and Marty. Marty came in, just another client, and he had turned down an offer of 5 years probation on a third-degree felony because he said, I didn't do it. I'm innocent. Surely the jury will find that out. And he turned that offer down the day before trial. Went to trial, lost, and got
life
in prison
with no chance of parole.
No chance of parole. And but you will note something right here. What is the notable fact that we are witnessing right here? Marty is alive. Are you in life in prison? No.
No.
And it was, and we'll give people a little background here. When Mary Rose first talked to me, I said to her, I gave her the whole spiel about how appeals are for losers and your chances on appeal are like this small.
Yeah.
And gave her all sorts of cold water about how difficult it was, right? And Mary, of course, she's a believer. She's like, yeah. And I said, but if you want to do something, because she's like, how can I help? How can I help? I was like, well, if you want to help, there's something called a 3850 post-conviction motion. And she's like, really? Well, take note, right? What? And I said, a 3850 post-conviction motion. So you need to start working on that right now, because when this appeal gets over and we lose, that's what you got to do. Of all of my clients and of all of my clients' family members, you know who took my advice? This person. So we went through 2 appeals. We kind of won the first appeal.
Yeah.
We got a rehearing, the second appeal. And if people have ideas and answers in law, this book right here, the chapter on one witness cases with an under oath contradiction is based on the appeal of Marty right over here.
Right.
Yeah.
That way.
Yeah, that way.
Marty's appeal that was basically the appellate brief in his case. He should never have been convicted on when you have the only evidence against him is one witness And that witness gets on the stand and says 2 different stories under oath that on an element of the crime. I mean, that's to not believe, but it's like, well, we got to be careful. You never know.
Yeah.
That's an even bigger deal.
Yeah.
So, so after 2 appeals, Mary Rose took the ball and ran with it and dunked it, and they offered him time served, and he did about 5 years in prison, right?
Yeah, 4 years, 2 months, and 13 days. But who's counting?
Well, what would you like to add to my rumblers and my chatter people here? If you might.
And don't go to prison. That's my advice to you.
Don't go to prison.
Now, what is that like counting the days when you have a life sentence and?
Really, you don't count days, because when you have life, you're not counting any days. You just wake up in the morning and you're living your day, because again, there's no date. So
yeah, you have no end date.
Yeah, so you just waiting on Jesus. That's all we're doing. But eventually,
yeah. And you were a truck. You had basically Marty had no prior record. Nope. He was a truck driver.
Yep.
And
owner operator,
operator,
drivers, couple trucks.
Yeah,
I mean,
a nice
it's not an insult to say a regular Joe, because I appreciate regular Joes. You're just a regular guy, and had contact, and you put in. I think Mary Rose also. I think because you're a person of faith.
Yes.
And I said, don't put your faith in the criminal justice system.
Yeah,
you know,
that was some of the best advice you gave me. Although everything you gave me was spot on, but that was. We lived by that. It was like, all right, God's going to have to do this, because they're not going to.
Right. And
the system is not going to work.
It's and Mary, somebody says, you were assigned to me. I'm a public defender, and he was assigned to, this was just randomly assigned to me. We have, we have about 20 attorneys in our office, but I happened to get Marty Peterson. And boy, I'll tell you, Mary Rose is a fighter. What do you think, Marty? Do you agree with that?
Yep, absolutely.
And
he said one time when he got out, he said, "You're obnoxious." And I said, "No, wait a minute. I said, now here in the South, that's not a polite thing to say to people." But I said, "Well, explain that." And he said, "You relentless. You don't give up." I said, "All right, I'll take relentless, but obnoxious. Yeah, we're not going to."
Well, Marty, I mean, having been through an experience that I hope nobody ever has to do, but occasionally, I mean, what kind of wisdom might you have to share with us?
Like, you have to read every piece of paper, whatever you're up against. You have to read every document, every piece of paper. And when you have proof, you had to go find it and show it. You have almost to shove it in the state attorney's face in order to understand, oh, we made a mistake. But they refused to make mistakes. So
admit it.
But you won't stop. You cannot stop. You got to continue on. Period. No matter what.
He told me when he came home that the only ones that got relief were the ones that fought like hell and didn't give up.
Yep.
But they went home.
You never gave up, and I appreciate it. But something else I wanted to share with people that there's a lot of people incarcerated in the United States, and not all of them have life sentences. But one of the things I tell people, like, I get a lot of family members that call me, and Mary, you stood out. I will say you were quite an exceptional person.
Well, I called you a lot.
Yeah, well, no, but that first call, I will never forget that call. And I don't know why, but you just, I kind of do know why, because you were so positive. So many of my clients, they want to take it out on me. Yeah. Right. They want to think that I'm the problem, and they attack me. And I'm just used to that. It's like, you're part of the system, and you're just working for them, and you're just giving me all this negativity, and you don't care and all of that. I'm trying to be truthful and honest and direct. And you took that information, but you never turned it around on me, even when we lost that second appeal, which really took the wind out of my sails.
Yeah, that was hard on you. That was very hard. That was very hard on you.
And I actually you remember when we won the first appeal, and I didn't trust anybody to do that. And I went back and fought like the Dickens to try to get Marty out or a new trial.
You did. You fought to the point where the judge was annoyed because you were trying to get so much on the record, and he was like, why do you keep talking, basically? And you said, I'm getting that on the record in case, and we hope they do, that the laws change at some point. And he's like, oh, okay, well then, then he got it.
But I think we gained his respect at the end. He didn't go with us at the end, but I spent about an hour and a half, and I had to get special permission to go and argue that motion, which I've done in a few cases. Well, I actually have another client that that I did, because some things people can handle, but your case was so complex and was so basically nitty gritty in the detail of the trial that you needed somebody that mastered that. And I just knew that if we handed it off to another attorney, they would not know the record.
Well, you even spent so much time digging into the laws to make sure that they were, I think you described it, were in place at the time of the accusation or the time of trial. I'm not sure, but you dug in hard, and it was so evident. I mean, you came in and did a beautiful job.
When you hit me with these, and Mary Rose, I'll say she's a detail person. Let's just leave it at that. And she hits me with like these spreadsheets to show me the injustice. And it's like she has all these reams of spreadsheets, and I'm like, get rid of that stuff, get to the point. And and this is the thing, I mean, when you first came in, you had so many details that it gets scattershot. It's like a shotgun blast, and you lose the power of the punch in the conflict of the evidence when you scatter in all these other details, but you attract all these facts. And I mean, and I was like, that's admirable, but you need to get to and that's kind of a litigator. So my job is to sort through those and make a lean and mean brief, right?
Well, and you did a great job. Yeah. My shotgun approach was to show that every single witness who testified not only lied in depositions, but lied on the stand. So yeah, my spreadsheet covered everything.
Let's get a little bit more into the facts of your case, because I want to qualify you as an expert.
And I still have the spreadsheet, by the way.
I know, I get it. Okay, but we'll get there. Okay, we'll get there. Patience, you're in good hands. But I want people to fully understand what you are about and what you've done and what you've been through, and Marty too. And this is an opportunity, folks. If you guys want to super chat or rumble rant and ask somebody who had a life in prison sentence and got out after 4 years and
2 months, 13 days.
Yeah, not that anybody's counting. No. And you'll wait until you hear what Mary Rose does for business. All right, but so what happened was, the appeals were over, and then you launched because you had been working on this 3850 motion for what, 2 years?
Yeah, we started looking into it and Googling and trying to figure out, all right, I don't know what that is, but I'm going to find out. And I had actually talked with quite a few attorneys over the years to say, what is it and what do we do and how do we do that? And I spoke with an elected public defender that gave me some of the best advice, right up there with what you said. He said, when you write it, he said, focus on what the attorney failed to do versus what she did wrong. He said, because anything she did wrong in your mind can be under the heading of trial strategy, and she's not going to maybe answer for that. He said, so focus on what she failed to do versus what she did that you don't think was right. So that was really helpful.
Well, but the key to the prison cell was that you discovered jury misconduct in Marty's case.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's when you tell me what you discovered, it kind of made my jaw drop. Yeah. But explain the three, like you had 3 jurors on your jury panel that had problems. Tell people just from personal experience what these jurors were on your jury and what the evidence was that entitled Marty to a new trial.
Well, that we had one that, of course, they're almost always asked, have you, family member, friend, ever been accused or convicted of a crime? And one of the jurors did not disclose that his adult daughter had a long history. Is that hurting your knees? He's bending down on his knees.
Okay.
Had a long history of drug abuse and had been in and out of jail, and not prison, but in and out of jail. And he didn't disclose that. He said, nope, don't know anybody. Well, that was the one time that I had to agree with the prosecutor. She argued that just because he didn't disclose drug charges does not mean that he would have been excluded in a sex offense case from the jury. So even had he disclosed it, we might have kept him anyway because we liked him for whatever reason. And so that was like, all right, well, that didn't work. But and then there was another that same thing, had just minimized things. But the winner chicken dinner turned out to be our 4-person, which about probably 40 to 50% of the time it's the 4-person, but not always. You'd be surprised. In fact, the Runaway Jury movie, it wasn't the 4-person. And I apologize, I have boxes in front of it, but these are some of my ongoing stuff. So
we'll get there. Yeah. We'll get there. Tell them about the 4-person of Marty's jury. What was their conflict again?
Well, it was a sexual accusation on a child is what Martin had been accused of. And the 4-person, for example, said during voir dire that she didn't know anybody in law enforcement. And we found that her mother and stepdad who raised her are career cops in the next county over. She said she didn't know anybody who had ever been accused of a crime. And then she said, well, I wrote a bad check 20 years ago. It was nothing. Turns out she had been on probation for 6 check fraud charges that had spanned over 20 years. So it wasn't nothing. That was something. And again, it's a bad check or check fraud. And that's apples and oranges compared to, but it just kept mounting. We kept investigating. We found that her biological father is a registered sex offender in Connecticut, where they're from. We actually found that she was from the same little town in Connecticut as the current clerk of court was. I thought that was interesting. But anyway, we found that she said she didn't know anybody who had ever accused anyone of a crime or been involved in anything like that. But then we actually were reached out to by one of her former husband's current wives, who said, I need to talk to you. When I talked to her, I found that this jury 4-person who said she was a housewife with 3 children and her husband was a professor. Well, that was partly true. She was a housewife and she was married to a guy that was a professor at the college, but that was her 3rd husband. And she did have 3 children by a previous husband. But when I found the 4th child, I realized why she lied, because he had distanced himself from her and didn't have anything to do with her because of in his words, he said she was crazy. But when we got to talk to his father, the ex-husband, we found that he actually provided us psychological references and records from their divorce 20 years before. I mean, what are the odds? We ended up with all of this information. And then in the divorce records, I found that she had accused multiple men of rape. Her whole life, had accused every man she'd ever met, pretty much, including the stepfather cop. And she'd been in and out of psychiatric hospitals and accused all of the male staff of rape. So now she works. Yeah, now she works. Now she's a nurse and she works at a psychiatric hospital. Martin has to keep me from calling them and going, has anybody died recently and that you can't explain why?
Well, but I think you had an interesting perspective on it, and that was that thank God that she lied, because it got that was the key to his freedom.
Yes.
So what happened was you moved for a new trial based on jury non-disclosures, and the 4-person was this serial accuser person who became, wanted on and discovered all of this stuff up.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff.
Well, she had 17 aliases.
Wasn't there a connection to the accuser in the case too? There was some Facebook connection.
Her that's what started this whole thing. I watched the movie, it got me thinking, and then I at that point Facebook had just become a thing. So I went on Facebook. It was 2015. I didn't know how to really look for people, except I found someone that looked like her with that same last name. And I said, that's got to be her daughter or somebody close to her, because that looks just like Rose. And her name wasn't Rose, by the way. Her real name's Colette. She had 17 aliases, but she was on our jury under Rose Elizabeth. So I looked through all of the photos, and I nearly just passed out when I got to one picture of the movie, The Hunger Games, the TV show, The Hunger Games. And I hovered over the likes, the reactions to it. And there was Martin's stepdaughter accuser's name. They were Facebook friends.
So the 4-person jury, who's this crazy accuser person, ends up on the 4-person jury is connected to the accuser, who is the one that basically said 2 completely different stories under oath on the stand.
Right.
And it was
and
like
it was before trial. The date
before
was
trial,
prior
yes.
to trial. When we disclosed that, I brought that to the court's attention. We were told small town. 170,000 residents is not a small town. There are like 3 or 4 high schools. They didn't even go to the same high school. How did they know about each other?
So, and what ended up is you got you know, an attorney down here in Melbourne that I know I've dealt with a couple times. In fact, it's funny because I had some history with him when I was a prosecutor, and I had one of his first big trials I prosecuted, and it was one of my major trials, and I kind of didn't like him. I was like, but actually, since you've gotten to know him, we've broken some bread, and I have added respect, and he really went to town and did you a good service and got your 3850 heard. And got, and it's, and I love I got a picture. I got maybe I can show it. I have a picture of Marty leaving the jail in his little paper outfit, you know, and it's like, didn't they say something like, well, you can go back and change and you have your clothes, it'll take you an hour. And he's like, let me out immediately.
They said, they told me when I took his clothes, and they said, don't worry, we gave him clothes. And I was like, oh, okay. And he comes walking out. I was like, those are not clothes. That's paper. So but now, he was ready to go.
So this was about, how long ago was this now? About
2016, July 28, 2016 is when he came home.
All right, so 2016. Now, since that time, okay, so would that be the end of our story, right? That would make you a wonderful interview. And actually, we talked all about this story, and I interviewed you before. But since that time, you have actually built a little business. And what is the name of your business?
Covert Ops Jury Investigations.
And that can be found at what website?
Juryinvestigations.com.
And what does juryinvestigations.com, covert ops, jury ops, what do you do?
We investigate jurors to ensure that the accused received a fair trial.
And how many cases have you investigated for the juries?
We're working on 81 through 84 now, I believe.
So you have investigated over 80 juries in this way. Now, here's the question that I know the answer to, and it makes my jaw drop every time I ask you. But I'm going to ask you for the benefit of my listening public, because I'm a big admirer of what you've done here. But in those 80 plus cases that you've investigated, how many cases have you found some? Now, let's not measure materiality, but some kind of juror misconduct.
All of them. Everyone. At least one. We just closed a case, and the report included 5 out of the 6. I mean, it's exciting and it's horrifying at the same time.
It's very sad. And as a lawyer, you know, going to law school, you never, you know, you just kind of, people don't even think about the juries. You know, it's like, okay, you ask them questions and you expect honesty. And as somebody and people that know my book, Prepare, one of my main, you know, things that I talk about is truth, and the fact that, you know, that human beings are such excellent liars, and we will lie over anything. We'll lie when it hurts us. And what you are finding, and through your research, is that you find that jurors lie in almost every jury. There is a liar. And or more, one or more liars. That is shocking, and it is eye-opening, Gigi, right? Now let me ask you this, because now not all lies are created equal, right? Is that fair? I mean, we find misconduct, or you find misconduct. You're the one doing it. You find misconduct, but not all of those rise to the level that you can get a new trial. But that's the objective, right? Well,
the jurors that we move forward with, you know, we write the report and we provide it to the client. They take it to the attorney, and then the attorney decides, you know, like you, okay, out of all of this I could present, what are we going to focus on? And so our job is to investigate the jurors and provide as much information as we have found that we feel is egregious enough to at least get your foot back in the door. We have 3 excellent attorneys that we work with, and they have an understanding with me that if I send them a potential client, and the report, and if they don't believe that it has a strong chance of success, or as Brian Sabie would say, a good faith argument, if there's not a successful chance of getting at least back in court and having a chance to get a new trial, then they'll tell me, no, that's not strong enough. So now, after doing so many, I've got a good idea of exactly what they're going to be okay with. So I make sure that, our standard is very high. We don't stop looking until I get to that jaw drop moment where I literally take it back and go, I can't. Wow. Okay. That's good. That's
well,
really
here's a good comment. Trish says, why lie? It will be found out. Actually, no. What Mary is doing here is, you're the only person in the country that I know. And you cover the entire country, right?
We do.
So you are based in a particular state, and you were actually, Marty, and you were in Florida for a time. But one of my advice, and again, you take my advice, which is
well, it's great, good advice.
Well, but maybe, but people ignore you, But I said, move the hell out of the state.
You said, get out as fast as you can, and we did.
Prosecutors are vindictive.
Yeah,
and when
they're
you
awful.
beat them, they will come after you, and they will set you up. And I did not want that to happen to my clients who dodged that major lightning bolt, right?
Yeah, ours actually signed on to her husband's Facebook page and slandered Martin on every comment. And it wasn't.
Yeah, there was a real war. I will say that, Mary Rose, you are a relentless person, and you went after the prosecutor, and thus brings the question.
Drum roll.
Jay Liebot. He wants me to just read his name because he likes me saying Jay Liebot. If you're released due to jury misconduct, can you sue for false imprisonment?
That's a good attorney question. I could answer that based on what I know, but I'm not an attorney. So
well, the answer is in a cold day in hell. Okay.
Yeah, suing's not really an option. And I tell our clients, look, again, not attorneys, but our hope is that you get back in the house, negotiate the best deal you can, and go home, and then get out of Florida, but
right. Or get out of it. If you're in a jurisdiction, because those prosecutors, now they know you and you're that difficult person, and they're going to look for ways to nail you.
Yeah.
And they won't give you any.
You got out. And you made them look.
Not all my clients listen to me. I've told clients exactly that. I said, just get out of this jurisdiction, so the cops don't know you and the prosecutor doesn't know you. So you're in another jurisdiction. But
right,
that's a hard thing. That's a hard pill to swallow.
Well, some people have been there their whole lives. Their whole life is there, and they shouldn't have to leave. And it's not about running. Somebody said one time, well, Martin's running from something, and I said, no, he's running towards freedom.
Well,
he's running towards
freedom. And actually living life and breathing. Oh, I was going to ask Marty. I was about the support of family, because how important that is for people who are locked up, to have people outside that care and that keep in contact and just remember them. Right. And I know that that's something that it's very typical for people to get kind of forgotten in the system.
Oh, absolutely. They say I was left for dead. And it happened to Martin. His sister stole everything and never came back to visit him, and his friends all walked away. When he got out, he literally had paper clothes and me and my family, who had been a real strong support all the way through. But it's important. I tell families, look, we're just joining your army. You already have an army of support. At least the ones that contact us, for the most part, do still have somebody out here. And as they find that there's another way to get back into court, and they start getting excited about it, it's amazing how many friends and family kind of come back around and get caught up in that excitement. And then they have their army again to help them fight, because it does take an army to help you fight your way home.
So let's talk about the jury covert ops army. Mm-hmm. Now, what you do, you're basically almost like a private investigator, but you have very strict rules. Mm-hmm. And you're very careful in what you do. And I know that, you charge for this, and there's a lot of stuff that's hot, confidential. I know kind of what you're doing, but tell us what, as much as you can, without revealing methods and sources too much about what kind of stuff you can get.
Sure. I mean, everything we look into and for is public record because it has to be admissible in court. So we're not necessarily looking at the dark web per se, although we do have somebody that kind of delves into that a little bit if we really need her. But for the most part, it's, you know, it's court records. We close a lot of cases. I would say probably 60% of our cases are closed based on local law enforcement records. Just because the state attorney chooses not to prosecute and you don't make it onto the docket doesn't mean that the cops haven't been called to your house every week for years. So there's a lot of good information there. We use archives, newspaper archives going back hundreds of years. There's a lot of, most of the things we pay for the software, we pay for access, but whatever we find is considered public record and it is admissible in court. We never contact the jurors. That's absolute no. We don't befriend anybody on Facebook and try to talk them. No, we're not doing any of that. That's why Martin added the covert ops to it, actually, about 3 years after we started jury investigations, because we want everyone to know, and we were reminding our investigators as well, that we stay under the radar. We don't want the jurors to know they're being investigated because it's a third-degree felony to lie in court. And if you go and interview them, you're asking a liar to be honest with you and get themselves in trouble. So I laugh when the families say, well, we're going to hire someone and they're going to go talk, or they have gone and talked. In fact, we've had to turn down cases because the families have rattled all the jurors. And we said, we can't, they're not on social media. Their court dockets are gone. There's no way for us to even know if they had a traffic ticket. And we have had clerks of court take down all the juror information because one of the jurors called and complained.
Okay, so perfect segue into the topic for tonight, and that is the Alex Murdaugh case. And now, just how familiar are you with the Alex Murdaugh case?
I followed it as much as I could when it first hit. And then I tried to refresh a little bit. Like, we've been just absolutely swamped. The exciting part is that our cases are getting reopened, and now we're getting hearings. We're getting juror interviews. Michael Ufferman just rocked it this morning and got us another juror interview. So I've been up to my eyeballs, but I did try to go back in and see what's new. And I did see where the clerk of court was getting in trouble. And I got a kick out of that.
And I reviewed the paperwork, and I printed it out and reviewed it, and I highlighted some of the operative things. And here's the key. There's really 3 key allegations within this document. So let me go through these 1, 2, 3, and then we'll talk about them specifically, and then get your reflections. Okay. The first is the clerk, the elected clerk of court, the person who maintains the dockets and maintains these things, the ones that you're working with. So the elected clerk of court, who's named Rebecca Hill, advised the jury not to believe the defendant's testimony and any other evidence presented by the defense. 2, pressured them to reach a quick guilty verdict. And 3, even misrepresenting critical and material information to the trial judge in her campaign to remove a juror she believed to be favorable to the defense. So my first question to you is, have you ever heard of a clerk or anybody within the court system tampering with juries in this way?
No, just probably because that's not really our purview, but it didn't surprise me. My question was, have all of the jurors stated that, or are just a few claiming that she did those things? Because what I read, she's denying that she did that. So, well,
yes, but she did write a book.
Yeah, is it in the book? That's why I didn't get that far. I got where she wrote it.
Well, let's go one by one. So okay. There were multiple jurors who reported that she was having little whispering campaigns, and the clerk would go into a 1-person bathroom with the jury 4-person and different jurors and whisper and talk, right? And that there was lots of discussions from the clerk's point of view with the jury. She was ingratiating herself with the jury, becoming part of the jury. And that is just not okay in any stretch of the imagination. And talking about the case, doing that and then talking about the case is absurd. So here is what she says in her book, for example. Mm-hmm. While the jurors viewed the Moselle property, we all could hear and see Alex's story was impossible. So she's putting herself in with it, the jurors and me. Mm-hmm. Some of us, either from the courthouse, law enforcement, or jury at Moselle, had an epiphany and shared our thoughts with our eyes. Oh, no. At that moment, many of us standing there knew, I knew, and they knew that Alex was guilty. This is the clerk of the court writing this in a book.
Yeah. How did the book how far after the verdict did the book come out?
Very quick.
Okay.
So she was looking to cash in on this big trial here to talk about this case. So the first thing is her communicating with the jury during the trial, which is a big, big no-no. Mm-hmm. The second thing is pressuring them to a quick jury verdict. So what she did is that there were smokers on the jury, and she said, you can't have a smoking break until you've got to make this. There's nothing really to discuss. Why she's saying that at all? There is just no place for that. Right. And then here's the third one, is that this is hard for me to believe, but during her interactions with these jurors, she discovered a juror. She says, well, what do you think about this case? And the juror answered properly, I haven't made up my mind. Mm-hmm. And because of that answer, she said, oh, there's a not guilty verdict, right? Mm-hmm. So they fabricated evidence, sent the police officers out to the ex-husband, saying that the ex-husband had posted something on Facebook that she was communicating on Facebook about the case. That the ex-husband denied that. But they brought it to the court and they excused the juror who was being fair.
Yeah.
Because she identified that juror that was pro-defense, or at least being fair, fabricated evidence along with SLED, and had that juror removed. Is that unbelievable?
Well, and that, of course, my first reaction was, can you believe those 4 jurors? Because out of the 12, you know that at least one was lied their way in there. So, it sounds to me like she's saying, well, we communicated with our eyes, but if she was in fact doing those things, then all 12 jurors would have said, oh yeah, she was doing that the whole time. So I'm a little
what they're seeking now is they're seeking to interview the jurors.
Yeah.
So these are allegations, affidavits signed by several of the jurors,
right? Who might be the ones that lied their way onto the jury.
Listen, my skeptical friend.
That's why what I do for a living is I look.
I know
for
that's
liars.
why I wanted you on. I wanted your expert perspective here. Now, what about police officers lying? And have you seen that?
We had our detective in our case. He walked the line pretty, one toe over. When he was asked, was the accuser consistent in her 2 interviews? Well, you and I both know she wasn't. And he said, oh, wait, I don't know. I don't remember. It was once, it was twice. It was every day. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Once it was the one that I always like to say when I talk about your cases, it says it's happened once or twice. And then at the same under oath, she says it happened every day for 4 years.
Yeah.
And then they was asked, like, well, which one was it? Once or twice? Or it's like, well, that's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah. Pretty much same thing. Every day for 5 years between 4 and 5 o'clock in the afternoon, never on a weekend or during the summer months.
With her brother in the mobile home, thin mobile home wall right next that never heard anything.
The whole thing was crazy.
The whole thing was like insane. It was insane. And then the other thing about your case, this going back to the specifics of the Peterson case, is and again, I have a full waiver from both y'all, and I appreciate it. Yeah. But you also are very nice on your site. You give me, I say I'll take 1% credit because tiny little piece,
much higher. You and Brian Savy, we owe our lives to you because you were honest and you gave us good intel that we could trust, and it turns out that worked out. So
well, the other thing is what was the other thing about that case? It was so crazy. There were so many problems.
It's a train wreck. Yeah,
it was a train wreck.
And then
I know that there was there was a copycat. Let's just say that this accuser, who I think she was like 14, stepdaughter, right, was basically copying her friend who testified, who had done exactly the same thing. She followed this pattern, right?
Yep.
And she then testifies, oh yeah, this happened. I don't know where anything. The friend then came in afterwards. He testified for the state. He came in later and signed an affidavit that said she lied her rear end off under oath in the trial. So we tried to get a new trial based on that also, that she was making allegations and it was flat out committing perjury on the stand. And the other witnesses, I can't stand by and watch this. But of course, again, it's like, well, come on, we've seen it all before. Everybody's guilty,
Yeah. Well, and the crazy part too is that every day between 4 and 5 o'clock, she was at the YMCA and after school care. So then when they tried to narrow it down and say, well, when was the last time that something happened? She picked a weekend and Martin brought out his logbook and says, I was what? Fuel receipts. And said, I wasn't even in Florida. And then they said, well, he wasn't home that weekend. She said, well, then it was the other weekend. And then he brought out his logbook and said, I was in Virginia or South Carolina or something. So then she actually said, well, it must have been when he was home.
Yeah, and this is the
and problem. They ran with
one of these. It's this ever moving target, and it was, and that was basically it. Was like, we're just going to throw it up there and see what happens. That's what happened, and the prosecutor did that. She's like, oh, let's let her say whatever she's going to say and make a big mess. And it's like, well, that's so serious. It must have happened, right? It was so problematic, and your case, it scares me so much. Because
it should terrify every man and woman that is married to a good man, because it takes one female that's got it out for you. And you're going to, now it's 16 and under. The laws have changed. If the child is 16 or under and makes an allegation that you can't prove is false, which you can't, it's your word against hers, you're going to prison, automatic life sentence with no chance of parole in Florida.
I know. It's frightening. Well, and that's one of the reasons I wrote the article, because to me, what is the check on actually innocent? To me, if you have an under oath contradiction and on a material element, and it's the only evidence is that accuser, it seems to me that ought to be a JOA, or a judgment of acquittal, before this even put on the defense. Because and in fact, one of the things I did in Marty's brief, we had somebody called Earhart. Oh, look, I found a Lego piece from last night. I was doing we do. There's somebody called Earhart on evidence who is like kind of the guy from Florida State University, but he's got this book on evidence, and everybody relies on it because they're like, he's the Florida State guy, right? But it's like one book. The real expert is Wigmore. Wigmore is like multiple volumes, and they don't, but you can't get Wigmore. So I had to go down to the law library and pull it off the shelf. And what Earhart had like a paragraph, Wigmore had 18 pages about this very issue. Yeah. And that's where the article on Ideas and Answers in Law comes from. Yeah. I got that because of your brief. See, a lot of the stuff, these articles and these things in this book are from these real world cases. And here's, and people are like, guys, you're just full of, you don't really do trials. You don't really do appeals.
Well, if they don't think you know what you're talking about, they would be wrong.
Okay, well, thank you. You're nice.
Well, Martin is here because you know what you're talking about, and when you didn't know, you went and found out.
Well, and I'd say one of my superpowers is that I really don't know anything, and I doubt everything, and so I'm like, okay, but I know there's a question there, and I'm like, okay, I got to go find the answer, and always. Don't think you know everything. Arrogant like that. The arrogance is the road to injustice. So you come in, you be humble, you explore the law, you do the best you can. And I just did that. And I really, that second appeal, my wind came out of my sails. But Mary was there to pick it right up, and you've created a good business out of it, and you're helping a lot of people, and you're doing great work. You're doing God's work. And because nobody does this.
Well, that's it. We pray every day for God to just send us the people that we can help. And it might just be that I have information that they need, and I spend a lot of time just educating people that juror misconduct is a viable vehicle back to court. The jury's in charge of the verdict. Now you can picture the courtroom. the jury is almost always way off to the side, sometimes in an alcove, in a box, they say. You don't even see the jury. You don't focus on the jury during trial. You don't even see them coming and going. They go out the back door. They come in. They're guarded. Your eyes are focused on the witness stand during trial. You don't, after jury selection, we've had guys and 2 females literally go to trial, lose, call me from the jail the moment they got back, and they're so traumatized, they can't tell me if they had 6 or 12 jurors. The trial went on for 2 weeks and they can't remember. They can't tell me anything they can't tell me if they were white, if they were black or Hispanic, male, female, they don't know. So the courtroom is set up on purpose to keep your eyes off the jury, but the jury's in charge of the verdict. So you can get up there and do all the song and dance you want and put on a defense. But at the end of the day, it's those people going back in that room. It's locked and they get to decide. I was a jury 4 person, so I understand. Juries are people. They don't know the law. They don't understand the law. And by page 2 of the jury instructions, they are glossed over and done. They're thinking, what are we going to get for my free lunch today? They're not with you. And it's really quite sad. I do not believe that you can get a fair trial in America, or I don't know about the other parts of the world, but by an impartial jury, because we find impartial jurors on every jury we look at, and their crimes are egregious. They are lying about things that are elements that are key to the case, and knowing, even taking an oath and swearing to tell the truth. They're asked several times for a voir dire by the judge and the state and the defense to please tell the truth, be forthcoming, be honest. We need your honest answers, because this is an interview. We are interviewing you for the jury. You don't get to decide whether you want to be on the jury. We get to decide if we want you on the jury, if you're the best person for this jury, if you're going to be pro-defense, if you're going to be pro-state. We get to pick you. And we can't do that without good intel. And it makes me obviously very cranked up. It makes me angry that people come in there and they lie with agendas like our 4 person. But at the same time, I thank God that we did. I thank God for Rose every day, because without her having lied, Martin would not be home. He would die in prison for a crime that didn't happen because an ex-wife got angry.
Yeah.
It's not okay.
And this is something we tell people, and like I say, don't put faith in the justice system. No. You put faith in God and God alone. Yeah. And the system is a human system and it's flawed. And even the best defense case is 50-50. And you had a very good case. I mean, like, that's the thing, Marty. It's like, how can people not see that this person's lying with all these under oath contradictions about major things, right? But it's like, it's 50-50, and you're rolling those dice, and when the consequences, and this is the thing, consequences of losing are life in prison. And he was offered probation for 5 years. Yeah. But he made the mistake of putting faith in the justice system. And it's hard. It's the hardest ones of all are the people who are actually innocent. Yeah. Because they really feel, because they're not used, especially if people haven't been in the criminal justice system like Marty. Right. See, he was the perfect guy to go down for something he didn't do, because he didn't have a prior, didn't be involved in the system, didn't know, put faith and said, well, it must work, and this sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And when the lawyers are saying, you got to just take this good plea deal, he's saying, oh, come on, why should I plead something I didn't do? They'll see the truth, which, I mean, now that you have a little experience, right?
Well, and he is a very strong believer. He believed that the truth would come out and that God would send him to prison. And, I tell people all the time, we're thankful that we did get put on that path to prison, because if we hadn't gone through that, I would not have this, and I would not be able to talk to people every day and give them hope and say, look, you're not done. I understand you filed this and you filed that and you're all the way to Habe and everything's been denied. And the courts have now barred you from ever filing anything again. But guess what? There's new evidence. And if that new evidence is in the form of juror misconduct, now you're challenging the verdict, not the case. It's nothing to do with the case. In fact, we don't even consider whether you're guilty or innocent. Now, I tell them, look, if you truly did this and they have hard evidence, that they're probably going to rerun it, and you might very well lose again. Not an attorney, not giving advice. I'm just saying, here's where we're at. But right. if you can show now that you didn't do this, and you have proof now to show that you're not the guy, that you didn't have at trial or wasn't presented at trial, then maybe, just maybe, you can get back in the courthouse and negotiate something and go home and start over.
Well, and in fact, people are, we get wrapped up in the Alex Murdaugh case, right? Mm-hmm. And people say, "Oh, he's such a bad guy. He did it." And then people say, "No, he didn't do it." And they get this polarized.
Yeah.
As an attorney, as a defense attorney, public defender, it doesn't matter to me. You know what? He's entitled to a fair trial. And if the clerk was interfering with a jury, he didn't get a fair trial. He's entitled to a new trial based on that. Yeah. And I've heard judges saying, "Well, just how many trials does somebody want anyway?" I had a judge I know say that, and my answer is one fair one,
right?
And that's what. So you've got a great business. You cover the entire country, and if you've got something, and when would be the time to hire Mary Rose Peterson? Like,
that's a very good question.
Yeah.
The moment that you lose at trial, call me from the jail, because in Florida you have 10 days to present evidence of juror misconduct. When we get cases like that, and we've had, I think, 6 now, we just closed one. That's why I'm a little tired. We were up for 5 days, but we were able to find juror misconduct, and we actually got sentencing postponed. So that's what we try to do, is we try to throw a monkey wrench into the system in a sense and say, look, we're gonna put a pause. I understand you got convicted and that train is going down the track and sentencing's coming up and everybody's in a panic mode, but we're going to try to pause and say, wait a minute, I don't think you got a fair trial here. And if not, then that needs to be explored before you are sentenced and sent to prison. And we have have 2 clients now that are home. They're out on bail pending all of this. So that's exciting.
And it's not necessarily, but if somebody has been sentenced and they're off to prison and they have an appeal ongoing, you can come in at that point. It's not essential.
Sure. And
you would prefer to get it early.
Right. We can be brought in. I mean, our goal would be to keep you from prison. So we can come in right away, and we can do all hands on deck where we literally stop everything and everyone works on that 24/7. And we dig in to see if we can find something in that 10 days. But if not, if you're past that, and probably half our clients have been in prison for at least 20 years, they've exhausted all remedies. There's nothing left. So we can come in at any point in time and do an investigation. And then it's up to your attorney to, of course, advise you as to how to get that back in court.
And you do have certain attorneys that you do work with.
Yes.
I know that, although I'm a public defender, you work with a fellow named Brian Savey down in Melbourne, who was the one that handled Marty's trial. I know you work with him, but you have other attorneys in other states that you work with. And are you involved? Would you help them select attorneys if they are at that stage too? Or do you rather work with them? How do you work that?
We do. Some people bring attorneys to us that some have family friends or ones that they've been with that have been fighting with them, and they still trust them. They're just out of evidence. They're out of ways to get back into court. Michael Ufferman works with us. I shouldn't say works.
Ufferman is great.
He does. Let me correct that. Michael Ufferman's a rock star. He does not work with us. We are privileged to work with him.
So people know, he's one of the top defense lawyers in Florida. He's very well known. He argues a lot in front of the Florida Supreme Court.
Right.
And he's very widely respected and admired in Florida.
He only does appeals, not post-conviction. He only does appeals. He doesn't do trials. So we've been able to work with some of his clients who are, again, out of options. Rachel Reese in Tampa is also working with several of our clients. So those are the 3 ones that we refer to in Florida because we trust them. We've seen what they've written. We've been with them in court, and we know that they know how to argue this.
Well, Wendy H. says, oops, this is a threat stream. That's right. We're threatening you, prosecutors. You better get your act together. I think she means great, but I like
let me say, she'll love this. We found out recently that our prosecutor, who we caught switching up evidence and doing all kind of shady business to get Martin convicted, she is actually no longer with the state attorney's office. She is working for a less than reputable attorney in Hernando County. And what she advertises is that she's not doing criminal law anymore. She's doing estate planning, divorces, and personal injury. So it took a blasting, putting her crimes on blast since 2012.
The thing that I was really surprised when I came over to the defense side on how bad prosecutors were. And now that I've seen, I've been doing this YouTube thing and watching other trials in other jurisdictions, and I am shocked how bad most prosecutors are.
Yeah.
And it's how unethical and how dirty and nasty. I mean, I am shocked. It's not just a Florida problem. It is a nationwide problem that these people get drunk with power. They get the wrong ideas. They get, again, ideas and answers in law. There's an article in there about prosecutors. It's shocking, this win at all costs attitude. And I know we had a local prosecutor here, for example, who shall remain unnamed, but I think he's in the book, but we'll just leave it at that, who got sanctioned by the Florida Supreme Court, which having a prosecutorial misconduct,
that's a big deal,
sanctioned by the Florida Supreme is very big deal on a death penalty case.
Oh,
and he retained his job as a capital prosecutor.
Wow. Well, we presented all of this evidence to the bar, and they wouldn't even have her answer it.
Right.
So
yeah,
it's okay.
Crazy.
We just closed a high profile case in Minneapolis, a federal case. And yes, I'm not shocked anymore, but I'm horrified at how attorneys will lie and cheat to win, state attorneys and even federal prosecutors. It's like, they're leaking things to the media, and it's like, you're cheating. You're cheating.
Well, and it's prevalent, and really we have this tyranny of the criminal justice system that's really, people are now seeing it on the national stage because of all the things that are going on in the country. But we've seen it for a long time, and now it's becoming a problem. It's this royal class that is immune from any kind of consequence for personal vindictive, evil behavior. And it really needs to be checked. I have one of my buddies, Upon the Horizons, in the chat, and I haven't been following the chat because I'm chatting with Mary Rose, and she's actually wonderful. If you have a question, we're only going to have a few more minutes with her, I know, but if you have questions, please do Rumble Rant or Super Chat, and please do go buy my book at stevegosney.com. That's where you can support. And look at she's you got it. That's the first
right
edition.
Up there with my and my Blind Injustice. I love that. And then, of course, my Runaway Jury book. But yes, yours is top.
That's a hardcover first edition you got right there.
I know. I got it.
I need to send you a new one. Yes, I know. You've got it personally. Well, but you were one of my. You're in the book. So people that got in the book.
Yeah, we're in the book.
And people want to read a little bit about what was involved with that case. Look at one witness cases with an under oath contradiction. That's the case. So if you want to, Shane Sousa's in the chat. He's one of my mods, and he's got juryinvestigations.com. So if they want to contact you, go to juryinvestigations.com for all your contact. It'll tell your story. There's the great picture, video
on the homepage.
Video on the homepage.
Martin coming out in the paper clothes.
I know, it's such a moving sight, and what a story, and it's one of those.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'll give your listeners a little heads up, or a little, a tip. If you go to the contact page, there's my phone number. That is my cell phone number. It says for media and attorneys only, but for your listeners, if you would like to call me or text me on that, my phone does stay very busy. I made the mistake of putting my own cell phone number on there when we started, having no idea it would get so crazy. But yeah, you're welcome to text me, and then as soon as I'm off the phone, I'll be happy to call you back.
But you are here. I mean, that is your business now, is to help people post conviction, and I think that if you get a conviction and there is you're not cheap, you are private, but on the other hand, you are relentless and fearless and smart and organized and a woman of faith. And talk about your faith a little bit and about how it was tested. And I mean, that's quite something. I don't hide my Christianity on my channel. I celebrate it.
It's we wouldn't be here without God making a way, and he did make a way. And I will say too, I have amazing investigators who are just as relentless, and one thing we do, we cannot legally guarantee you that we will find your bias, but we do promise in the contract that we won't stop looking until we find it. We know it's there. It's always there. Sometimes it takes us a year, but we don't stop looking until we find it. But as far as my faith, I was raised in church. My dad was a minister and then a pastor in his retirement. And so my faith is deep. My roots go deep, and it's, you know, without God, there is no hope, you know. And I tell people all the time, they say, oh, you know, thank you for the hope. I said, you know what? I said, I'm going to give you help. I said, but it's God who gives you your hope back. He's the only one that can. So Martin and I was just privileged to meet a man that I knew was special. When I met him, I knew that God had his hand on him. I couldn't explain it. I said, there was just something about you that I had to be in your presence. I had to be around you. And when he went to prison, he read the Bible relentlessly, I think 4 times, all the way cover to cover. He can quote things. If you tell him a Bible verse, he'll tell you where it is. I mean, he has a really great memory. And, you know, he trusted God. That's why he said, I didn't do this, and I'm going to go forward, whatever that means. But I'm not going to lie and say that I did. And if God sends me to prison, then that's where I'll go, and I'll minister there, and I tell people, you know, there are people there who need to hear your story. There are people there that you need to hear their story. God put us on the path to prison, and it was not easy. I cried out every day and begged God to please make this stop. Just I don't know when and I don't know how, but I know he's coming home, and I know you're going to bring him home. And I told people that all the time. I don't know when, I don't know how, but I know God's going to set him free, because this is wrong. It's wrong on every level. It's legally wrong. It's morally wrong. It's ethically wrong. It can't hold. It just can't. And I was very thankful that God allowed us to be set free in such a short period of time compared to most of our clients, and to be allowed to meet people like you and others that have remained in our lives. And I have no words.
Fidelity to the truth is so important. And I really do think that ultimately that is grounded in faith.
Yes.
And people that have lost their faith, it's like, well, why don't I just lie to achieve this end? Because ultimately you're accountable. And it's sometimes hard to tell the truth. And I'm not just saying sometimes you are persecuted and externally persecuted, but sometimes it's hard to discern the truth.
Right.
You know, and that's where humility comes in. And I find that those two things are really important. Humility, commitment to the truth, and finding your way and finding the God's way is a difficult. That's all of our calling. We should always be trying to follow God's will in everything that we do. And boy, you are doing that. And you've been very successful. You have a great career that's developed out of it. Oh, and I got another little detail. I gotta share, because this is just for you. Only you, okay? Because I know you're the only last people on here. It's just between me and you. I'll tell a secret about Mary. She was actually a comedian.
Oh yeah, yeah. I gave up a beautiful career on stage to marry Martin and go down this path, but it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
That's great. I just think it's a great little thing, because I remember I met you. You do have sort of a I don't know. It's sort of a cheeky sense of humor.
It's total. It's total cornball.
Twisted, little twisted.
And I'm married to the corniest person.
Yeah.
But he makes me laugh every day, and that's how I knew that he wasn't that guy. I said, you know, everybody and when he went to prison, I started talking to friends and neighbors, and everyone said that we've known Martin Peterson for 20, 30 years. He could never, ever have done that. That is not who he is. And, you know, I'd only known him 8 months when he went to trial, but I knew there's no way.
It was, it's amazing how the world works. And let's just say, let's thank God. Let's stay true. You know, remember that your faith is most needed when you're down.
Yes.
And don't betray God for anything. That is the key. And
don't walk away. Hold tighter.
Hold tighter. Try to do your best and be committed, and try to be committed to the faith, and be humble in your faith. You know, it's like, move forward with that humility and open mind, but also with the certainty that you're doing his work. So I really thank you. I appreciate it. I know sometimes people don't chat as much when they're. I haven't been reading the chat. I've only been paying attention to Rumble rants and super chats, but because you're such a fascinating interview, and I think it's so great to have you on again.
It's fun to talk about this, and I love sharing our story and trying to give some information that will be of help to someone. That's, we want others to go home, have a second chance to go home. That's why we do what we do.
All right. Well, God bless you all. And it's not. Oh, I'm thinking I might do, just so that everybody knows. So all the good stuff goes on the front end of the stream, and then I promote at the end. I might do a live stream tomorrow. The Florida Supreme Court has 3 really interesting cases that I'm going to be watching, and oral arguments, and I might just live stream them, because I need to watch them. They're all 3 are interesting. One of them is a death penalty case that's being argued by our division chief, Nancy Ryan, who is brilliant. You talk about one of the smartest lawyers you've ever been around. Oh, there's the puppy.
There's my mascot.
What's his name?
Max.
Max. Yeah. Well, there you go. That's a good one.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a death penalty case argued by my division chief, and then there's going to be the oral argument on the new the definition of riot, which I know Andrew Branca had talked about on his stream, about the new statute about defense of self and self-defense, and they've added riot, and there's a challenge there. And then there's another one about the rules of procedure that's changing. It's appellate rules of procedure, and there's going to be some really good oral arguments. I might just live stream that tomorrow. We'll see, because I'm going to be watching anyway. I'm like, might as well live stream it, and have everybody kind of hang out with me. And then
that's I'm also pop some popcorn.
Popcorn,
have a party.
All right, and upon the horizon, a good one to end on, Luke 4:18-19. One reason the Spirit of the Lord was upon Jesus was to set at liberty the captives.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, upon the horizons. He's one of my great commenters over there on Rumble, and I love that. He is always coming with. He's a strong faith, and he always has really good. He comes at things from a faith perspective, and we don't have enough faith discussion, and it's essential to who we are, and it's essential to truth, and so we need to keep it in front and center when we're having our discussions. All right, God bless you.
Thank you.
Hold on, Mary.
Okay. Bye, guys.